So, hello and welcome back to the podcast School of Love. Today I'm here with Sandra Lowen. So, thanks so much for being here, Sandra.
Thank you for inviting me.
And so, Sandra, just so to give you guys a background about Sandra, she joined the unification movement in 1966, blessed in 1975. So, this year, she and her husband are celebrating 50 years of marriage. So awesome. The golden marriage. At least in Germany, they call it the golden one. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. She has also been a kindergarten to 12th grade teacher, as well as a professor at a college level. And she has a master's degree in social work from Columbia University. And she's an ordained minister since 1972. She's a licensed clinical social worker for the past 35 years and has a PhD in English literature and creative writing. And I guess with all of this talent, she has authored several musical compositions, articles, novels, including The Great and Terrible, a memoir of her personal experiences with two parents, and has two grandsons. So I don't know how you did that all, but really grateful that you can be here and share all your experience that you've accumulated through all of that.
Yes.
Yeah, anything you want to add?
Oh, goodness. It's kind of like, what haven't I done, as my husband says. I've done it all, but I'm not finished yet. So I'm still
Oh,
finding new things to do, and that's always exciting.
yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I've become myself a believer of, yeah, why just pick one thing? We can pick so many, and I love your colorful experience of so many different areas. So yeah, today we're going to talk about supporting my child in an unsafe world. Yeah, why is it unsafe? I mean, it's unsafe for many reasons, but a big issue is that it's so sexualized, this world, and not in the way that God intended it, but really self-centered, self-destructive sex. And so I want to jump into this topic with you and ask, what are some common misconceptions that parents, specifically blessed families,
Mm.
have when raising their kids in this unsafe world?
Well, first of all, there comes the idea that my child is going to be perfect
Yeah.
and never have a problem, never have any kind of stress in his life, perfectly healthy. I will never forget years ago going to a workshop in which one young member was trying to impress his neophyte, the person he was bringing along as a guest. And he says, "This is the house where the blessed children live, and they're so holy, they never cry, and they never throw up, they never do anything like regular babies." And of course, at that moment, some baby goes, "Wah!" And I hope it didn't destroy his faith. But that's the concept a lot of us had, that these children were going to glow in the dark, practically. And as a result, when we look at our children who may be, they went out and got a secret tattoo, they've experimented with drugs, they are interested in, they have crushes, they have more than crushes, they're dating and we don't know about it, and all of these kinds of things. We wonder to ourselves, how in the world did we go from this ideal to this reality? And that's a very dark shadow to look at. So, a lot of what we deal with is disappointment from parents. And that disappointment can go to the child, and the child can feel even more isolated and alone. One of the things that I find when I talk to parents and children, because I do have an active practice, and when I talk to our parents and our children, one of the things I find that children tell me so often, especially adolescents, is my parents expect so much of me. I can't be the person they want me to be,
I understand. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Just coming from the other side of that, like it's also because I'm a second generation
Ah,
and just thinking back, like, well, even now, I'm trying to understand, like, is there really a difference between me and other people? You know, it's like it's really hard to really see, and maybe because this expectation was kind of passed on uh, from earlier generations, that yeah, we're somehow special. Of course, everyone is unique and special, but
yeah.
it's really hard to really feel or see, like, you know, I have any stronger connection with God than anyone else, and yeah, so it's just, yeah, the identity crisis is
Right.
really raw and real.
Well, so much of what we as parents believe come out of our own backgrounds. Of course, a baby is going to cry. Of course, a baby is going to wet himself, throw up all over you, mess up the house, pull the dog's tail, and fight with siblings. That's going to happen in most cases, unless you did get that one in a million child. Well, but other than that, working with what the difference is. And I always ask parents, what do you think is the difference between you and your next door neighbor who never heard anything about divine principle, which is your fault because you should have witnessed to them? But what is the difference? And the simple difference is original sin. So we have two individuals who look exactly the same, but one looks like what every child should look like because the parents went the foundational course and were able to conceive that child without passing on this terrible curse of original sin, and the other isn't. So when we look at, good Christian families, they're living well, they're doing what they should, and their children are really cool, and our children are really embarrassing, then it really becomes a question. What is the difference? And the difference is really what we make it and what we help our children to recognize in their own sovereignty. I like to think of our young people sometimes as kings and queens that have been driven out of their land. They have to figure out how to come back and how to be accepted and how to shine so that others can see their light. Which is a big Jesus quote, let your light so shine before men that others may see your good works and praise God through you. So that would be my response to your question about that. But our disappointment can mark our children
For
because
sure.
we may have different ideas as to the people they should become. I often look at our own child. We have a son, and when he was 12 years old, we lived out in the country, and he, like the other children around him, wanted to go hunting, which meant he had to have a gun. What is every mother's response to that?
Well, yeah, sounds dangerous.
Yeah, you're 12. You don't need a gun. Terrible things happen with guns. You don't need blah, blah, blah. The gentleman to whom I introduced you a little earlier said, let's talk about that. Let's look at the possibility that if he doesn't get the training that he needs, because it was a training course, if he doesn't get the training he needs, he could easily go and just kind of sneak around and maybe play with a gun, and maybe there would be a big tragedy. Let him learn how to operate a gun. So what does our child do now? He
Does he?
buys guns for the state of Washington. And he is the one who teaches rifle safety to the officers under him. He's a state trooper and a veteran of foreign wars, and that's been his life. Mom knows best, but sometimes the child knows what's in him, and sometimes he's on a quest to find his destiny that we may have no idea about.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean let your child go buy a gun. He wants one, but certainly being wise about that was an important thing.
Yeah, and I love how this could be really made into a good analogy of, because a lot of parents, they think, okay, this world is unsafe, it's very sexualized, better just not talk about it, totally
Mm,
avoid it,
yeah,
keep it
yeah.
out of our lives as long as possible, and then, my child will hopefully kind of just jump into the blessing and be fine.
Yay.
Um, but, it's usually not so possible that way.
Right.
Um, and so, like the gun, if you compare it kind of to sex, right? Like it's also kind of like if we don't just tell them, what is sex and how did God make it to be used in a wonderful God-centered way, then yeah, it's kind of like the gun. They might play around with it. It might be dangerous. They might really hurt someone else or themselves. And yeah, so what we really have to do is take this into our hands, kind of like your example, teach the child how to use it safely,
Mhm.
in a safe environment with these boundaries. So yeah, kind of going back to the disappointment. Okay, so I mean, I think second generation kind of know now that their children won't be perfect entering this world.
To grow into it. Right.
They realize, hopefully, or otherwise, here's a sort of announcement. We're not going to be born perfect, and I mean, I think every child is, born with a pretty clean slate, but we do need to still teach them and talk to them, about God's plan and prepare them for, yeah, this world that is not yet ideal.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, now how do we support them in the best way, right? Like
Yeah.
whether, yeah, whether you're first generation or second generation, it doesn't really matter. We just all want to support our kids, love our kids, and help them get through this kind of bumpy terrain,
Right.
which
Right.
is, yeah, I mean, it already starts quite young. The
Very young.
challenges, I mean, it depends maybe where you live, but challenges can already start pretty young. Um, so yeah, I mean, if if someone did have this disappointment, um, yeah, do you have any words to help them to just kind of get over that, or I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but
That's well put, actually. Yeah.
yeah, well, to really accept their child as they are, right? And to really get on board with support rather than disappointment.
Right. Well, there are several issues that come up. The first is, and I use our child as an example. I think he's given up going, Mom. Uh, he knows, yeah, you got to get used as an example. I can remember his being very, very young and the grandparents saying to him, So, do you have a girlfriend yet? So, and the child is thinking, well, maybe I'm missing something. I don't have a girlfriend. Maybe I'm supposed to get one. And there's all of this kind of silliness that goes on from friends and family who don't have, and sometimes even unificationists. It's surprising what people are willing to say to each other. But to look at the fact that the child is looking to us for direction. And
Mm,
when we let silliness come in, there has to be a place in which we can explain. Grandma and Granddad love you very much, but they don't understand uh, why it's important to be pure, why it's important to not let our minds go to, you know, other entanglements. You're a child. You need to grow up. You need to have fun. You need to, have a great time with your life. And helping the child to recognize you've got something special. Not that you're above everyone else, but you have something special. So, first of all, there's that, not being tempted by foolishness that people say. As well, absolutely not protecting, and I use little air quotes there, not protecting our child from sexual situations, but explaining those situations to the child. Right now, if I turned on TV, it's the middle of the day here. If I turned on TV right now, I bet in the next 10 minutes I would see 3 or 4 sexualized scenes. We can all be looking at Pippa's Pig or whatever, but we're going to see things in ads. We're going to see things on the street. We're going to open up a magazine and see something. And we need to be able to say to the child, this is a different way of life. This is not how we live, and not make it like those people are bad and horrible, but to let the child understand that there are many ways that people live. This is the one that has been chosen for you. And the child will then come to think more in terms of what mom and dad are thinking, because the child will absorb what mom and dad are telling him or her. As well, children learn what they see at home. So mom and dad are saying, we want you to go to the blessing. We so look forward to, being able to see you yell, Monse, 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 and the balloons fall down and, all of this stuff. That's our dream for you. And then they go and they argue with each other loudly and angrily, not looking for a solution or looking for help, but actually, there's an old country song, if I may, I'm going to have to use a word here, but there's an old country song that says, it's hard to kiss the lips at night that chew your ass out all day long. And I don't know how that
Interesting.
translates, but I think you get the idea.
Yeah.
Mom and dad have to realize that your child is in many ways a tabula rasa. In many ways, your child is looking to learn from you. Who else should your child learn from? And if one or the other or both parents are arguing and fighting and, belittling each other, complaining to the child, your dad's so stupid. I wish he would do this or that. Your mom should be contributing to the household income. This or that should be happening. That parentification of the child can lead the child to feel insecure, because I am half of my mom and half of my dad. So if mom and dad are fighting, I feel conflict in myself.
Mm.
And this makes me think, gee, maybe they're not the best people to teach me things. And there are plenty of people out there that want to teach them things, can't wait to teach them things, not because they are intrinsically bad people, but because they feel that the child has been deprived of something. So if I can go back to our poor son, his ears are probably burning now, but somebody gave him, one of his friends was asking, they sit around, they talk to each other. And the friend was asking him, do you have a girlfriend? Have you had this kind of experience? Have you had that kind of experience? And of course, he said no. And so the guy says, here, go look at this website. I can't say what the website was called because it really wasn't very nice. But he had it. He knew it was not the thing he should have. So he got home. He's getting ready to look on the computer to see it. And who comes in but good old mom?
Mm-hmm.
And he's dun dun dun. He takes this piece of paper, sticks it under the bookshelf, and he's going to get it out from there as soon as I leave the room. And it's just like radar. I couldn't believe it. I walked in and I just kind of went, doot, 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 doot. And I go to reach under the bookshelf and I pull it out. And so I said to him, read this out loud, which he did because it wasn't a nice word. Now, read it out loud again. I didn't hear you. And the choices would have been to really yell at him and tell him, how dare you bring this awful thing into my house, and your eyeballs are gonna fall out or whatever. But no, I said to him, what would make you look at something like this? And he says, well, my friend Joe said I don't know enough about girls and I should learn about girls. And if I look at this website, I can find out about girls. And I said to him, you're going to find out about Fred's girls or Bill's girls. You're not going to find out about the girl that's going to be your blessing partner. And by the way, I have been using the word blessing rather than marriage since our child was very small. I want him to think about blessing and to realize that that's the goal I'm setting for him without yelling at him about the blessing and you gotta be blessed and blah, blah, blah. So he got blessed. He's got his 2 third-generation children because he came out of that background and could realize that this is a good goal. So in trying to train him, when I said, what does this really mean? He goes, ew, yeah, that's I don't want to think about that. That's something that so he personally tore up the paper, and as far as I know, never went back to anything like that again, which was very important. Many of our young people get roped into pornography, or they find themselves wanting to touch themselves as their bodies are growing. And these things can cause a lot of problems in later life. And I'm not the person to do the high noon or other projects. I think that's left to another speaker at another time. However, I will say that when we look at something like masturbation, hold on to your hats, people, masturbation is normal in young babies, young children. Think about it. The baby is sucking his finger, and we say, oh, cute, isn't that sweet? And then he gets a little more athletic, and he's sucking his toe. Oh, look, he's so precious. Get the camera, Fred. We're going to take a picture of the baby sucking his toe. But the baby has this thing around the middle of him, and nobody deals with it. They take it off. They take off this little wrap and then quickly, put some powder on it or whatever, or oil it, and then they put this thing back on. And when they're taking the diaper off, they're going, ew, and putting it aside. And the baby must wonder, well, what's going on in there? What are they hiding? So the baby goes to look and pays it the same attention that he paid the finger and the toe. And this is his becoming acquainted with his body. And once he figures out what that is and that, something comes out of this or something comes out of that, he's done. It's when parents swoop in and make this a really bad thing rather than just distracting the child. Little Billy, oh, what are you doing? Oh, you're doing that. Okay, well, why don't we come over here and let's look at Peppa Pig? I don't know why Peppa Pig's in my mind today. But why don't we do something else? Let's play with blocks. Let's go for a walk around the block. Let's do something different. And the child forgets. And eventually that period passes in his life and he moves on. So, we could get very Freudian and talk about oral stages and genital stages and anal stages and all of that. But very simply to know that when your child is about 3-4 years old, he's going to discover that he has genitals and that those genitals do things, and that's all he knows. It's like his hand. I have a hand. My hand does things, and things don't come out of it, I hope, but that's a part of growing. When the child reaches a certain age, of course, the genitals start to grow, the hormones start to come in, those types of things start to happen. And that's when parents get really nervous. Now, I came from a background, back in the Stone Age when God was still wearing knee pants, in which my sexual education was, don't let boys touch you. Okay. Well, it was okay because all of my friends were the same. And I think we had one girl that became sexually active in high school, and we were all like, we can't play with Portia anymore because she does bad things. And that was us. We worked in hospitals. We took care of little old ladies in nursing homes. We cleaned the streets. We did our homework. We did those kinds of things that kept us busy and excited. And if you go into some of the theorists for that time period, I'm thinking of Herbert Marcuse in particular, whose idea was to bring about a more communistic way of looking at the world. One of the things he said was the way to bring down a society is to take away that creative part and allow people, and I'm paraphrasing him, to become more spectators, to get them more interested in me and more interested in self and more interested in sex. It will destroy a civilization. And that is it. So our parents, whether they, I mean, my parents were not, that kind of people, but they were smart enough to know that we needed to keep busy. And of course, they'd walk around going, idle hands, devil's workshop. Go to the hospital and feed some little old ladies. And we'd do that because that was what we did. That is not now. All of our songs were about the idealization of love and how we should be perfect people so that we could get the right person. You know, and I'm thinking of some songs. Not You Ain't Nothing but a Hound Dog. I don't know why that comes to mind. I don't know. So that was one thing. We lived in a society that was like the society or mimicked the kingdom of heaven society that we talk about. Our children live in exactly the opposite. So one of the things that our son talks about a lot was he had a friend of all of these people that were running around and girls. Of course, he was ridiculously handsome. But of all the girls that were looking around for boyfriends and so on, there were two people that they never bothered. Our son and his best friend, who was an Indian guy, who also was going to have an arranged marriage. And they used to walk through the halls very proudly, calling themselves the two virgins. And they were really proud of that. And I was proud of them for being proud of that. So if parents get to know your friends, get to know what your children's friends believe, what's going on at the house when your children are going to sleepovers and all of those kinds of things. Not that we become the police, but that we make sure our child knows how to behave in certain circumstances. We don't want our children to drink, so let's not have liquor and things around our house. Let's not smoke. Let's not do those kinds of things. And sneaking off and thinking to ourselves, I can do this and my child will never know. They know. They know. They're like little, I don't know, little spy cameras. They see our flaws and
Yeah.
they see our good points too. So we want them to see our good points.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like, just cycling back a bit, like I really love your reaction when you found this website name from your son that, that he got his hands on, because it really shows, how we can react, right? It's not about being disappointed. It's really just about, okay, how can I really show love to my child and help him to be steered in the right direction?
Right.
Because I love him, and it's not about me. It's not about my disappointment.
Right.
It's about him in the end, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I just really like this example because I think how God wants us to act as parents is to just really think, okay, how, whether our child does something or not, God is a God full of grace, right? And we get to embody that by expressing it to our children, no matter what they do.
Yeah.
And so when things like that happen, I think we can just really think, okay, how can I pull them in rather than push them away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also another thing you mentioned, being so proud of a virgin. Like, I think I've noticed that kids feel so much more confident, in these things like being a virgin or not dating or whatever, when they feel, they have a safe space to do that, like a best friend who also has the same values, or also going back to this culture of, yeah, do you have a boyfriend yet? I've heard that too from my grandparents. And I think what we need to hear what kids need to hear is, our parents saying clearly, with integrity, we don't have that culture in our family, because otherwise the kid is kind of left alone to defend this whole ideology when they're already too young to really explain it all
Right.
to an adult. I mean, okay, unless they're really well prepared, maybe they have that. But yeah, when kids don't see their parents, stand up for that,
Yeah.
then it makes it harder, I think, for themselves too. Yeah.
And that's something that we are coming to realize more and more is that we are the ones that help our children. I think someone had asked the question, what do I do if my child has low self-esteem? And
Mm.
such children easily can become followers because they want other people to like them. So it is a parent's job, and I know that there are actually cultures in which the child is told, you're nothing, you're a jerk, you can't be any better than you are. But the idea is that then they go around the corner and they say, oh, my son Freddie's just the most wonderful person. I don't understand that. I will tell you, years of study, what have I been doing this kind of clinical work for 35 years? I still don't understand. I want my child to know how proud I am of him. And I
Yes.
tell him that, look, you got a 95 on your test. That's so cool. I'm so proud of you. Look at you. You are really great. And letting the child know you are good enough. Something happens in our families around the time that the child is going into that, what we can call fifth stage of development, when the child is developing intimacy. And what happens is the parents withdraw. I'll explain it. The young girl starts to develop physically. Most of the time, she is developing into her maidenhood at about the time that mom is starting to go down the other side of the mountain. So mom looks at the child and it's like, yeah, I used to look like that when I was 14 and I was pretty and I had a nice figure and all of that. Now I've had 6 kids and I'm getting bulgy and bumpy and my skin's starting to go and my hair is starting to fall out. And look at her. I hate her. And mom can actually feel a little jealous of this beautiful child that she has birthed. And it's all subconscious. So if someone says, do you love little Mary? Oh, she's the jewel of my heart. But actually, the jewel is outshining me, and that can be a problem. So when Mary is around, let her have her own life, and I have mine. Or we have situations in which, especially moms and sons, it's a little kind of touchy and strange because the son, the little boy that you used to carry around and love so much, now he's this tall and he's good looking and he's very virile and so on. So a lot of psychological feelings can come up that are confusing to mom. And how do I deal with my son? Maybe I shouldn't hug him so much. And the dad, too, may feel our boy's getting big. I should teach him to be a man and do manly things. And not every son is going to be that manly one. Not everyone is going to have those muscles that are like that. I think our son was like 14, 15 years old, and he could have easily been mistaken for a little girl because he was so cute. And he had a head full of curly hair and, you know, beautiful complexion and, smiley face and little limbs. And I remember him asking me one day, "Am I ever going to be like a man?" And of course you will. Just hang in there. And we sent him somewhere on some church thing, and he comes back and he takes his shirt off and he's got muscles. Who are you? And what have you done with my little skinny son? So helping the child to understand you will develop, you will become the person you want to be. And what of the child who has a disability? Sometimes parents and sometimes neighbors, other church members can be very critical of this. That child has that deformity because mom and dad must have done something bad. And that may cause their friends the potential friends to stay away from them. It may cause them to be isolated in the community. Or something may happen with one of the parents. Somebody gets into trouble, somebody gets a bad reputation in the community, and the child, as well as the parent, is ostracized. And this happens quite a bit. It's mom or dad's problem, but the child has to pay the price for it. And then the child feels like, oh, nobody wants me, everybody hates me. Where are the worms? And they go looking for just being sad. That child also becomes very vulnerable because of just the availability of things like drugs or alcohol that can help the child, at least externally, feel better. And so such children can become easy victims of being led astray, which is not the ideal that any parent wants. Nobody wants to lead their child into that.
Mm-hmm.
If the parents are so busy that they can't take care of those social needs that every child has, I want to love my child at 17 as much as I showed him love at 9, and thinking, oh, well, he's older, he can stay by himself. I'm going off to wherever, some mission far away, or I'm going to stay at the church and, do flower arrangements for the next holiday or whatever it may be. Our children get lonely. They get lonely for mom and dad. They get lonely for being touched, for being held. And even though they're big, they're huge babies, if that's not being taken care of, there are plenty of people out there that will make sure that they don't feel abandoned. And that can lead to their also being led astray. Big thing is communication. We used to, well, of course, we would talk to our child when he came home. Hey, what happened in school? What are you guys doing? What's your next project? Who are the jerks in your classroom? You got to know it all. And of course, that led us to understand what issues were. And we could kind of head them off if they seemed like they were going to be problematic. Also, just finding out how the child feels. How does the child feel about the political situation or the spiritual situation? What does your child know about the movement itself? What does your child feel about his or her faith? I'd like to know that when my child is 14 and not be blindsided when he is 31 and he and his wife and his 6 kids decide they're going somewhere else. That's an issue. So talk to your children. We all talk about date nights. Yes. I'm going to take my honey out for a date night. And we're going to have a wonderful thing that's going to save our marriage and make us love each other even more. What about our kids? Do we ever take our kids out for a date night?
Yeah, we try to make that a thing. Not nights, but, here and there, date day or whatever. But yeah, to just really lean into this communication, but connection, right? It's also a friendship in a way, right? Just really getting to know my child.
Right. So doing something with your child, you don't have to have a lot of money to entertain a child, even an older child. You sit down and we're going to fix the screen door today. I know absolutely nothing about a screen door, but Fred does. and Fred can come and help. One of the biggest shocks I got was we had I don't know, our toilet was out for some stupid reason, something wasn't working. And our son came in, he looked at us trying to make it work, and he just went and got up and did it. Thank you, son. You just saved us some money, and that was good. And helping the child to be helpful in other situations. In one of my master's classes, he went to school with me as an 8-year old, and they couldn't figure out how to work the VCR. That's for those of you who are younger. That's a thing we used to watch movies on, and for this class, and our son's sitting there. He had come to the class with me because the school was closed, and they're all laboring over this thing and scratching their heads and trying to figure it out. And he goes, ah, unplug the thing so it doesn't shock me. I'm going to fix your VCR. I got an A in that class. And
Not
we got to
bad.
watch movies all during the semester, the right movies. So also, big thing, disrespect. Sometimes I go to church and I'll hear a parent call a child, uh, you know, Fred. And the child will go, what? And I think to myself, oh man, that is not my child. Because we allow that kind of thing to happen, either out of embarrassment. Oh dear, everybody's looking now. The pastor's looking at me. Oh no. And so maybe we'll just let it pass by. Or because we really have some idea that there is a way that people of a certain age, somewhere between 12 and 19, and we accept that responsibility. I knew a woman, she had a 2-year old, and she's saying, oh my, he's acting up a little bit, but it's going to be so bad when he's 15. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's if you make it that way. So learning, if we teach our children to be respectful to us, we will worry less about them in the community. We won't be getting those notes home that say, Fred was disrespectful to his teacher. You've got to come down and get him out of, the discipline program because that's where he is until he gets that better. And we don't let our children go from oppositional to conduct disordered, where we find them doing things that are destructive to other children or to themselves.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, yeah, you really listed a lot of things we can do if our kid has low self-esteem, right? Like really, I mean, it's showing our kid that from ourselves, they are loved, they are accepted. I want to be friends with you, right? And yeah, I really love this point that you said of even when they're big, they still long for that.
Especially when they're big.
Especially when they're big.
Especially when they're big. Little kids can go out and play on the playground, run up and down and so on, and they come home and they're dirty and they want to climb into your lap and so on. You got to get them in the bathtub and do stuff and read them a story and say your prayers and put them to bed. And life is simple. But when your 16-year-old comes home and is kind of depressed and sitting around, and you say to the child, what's going on? Are you all right? Yeah, Mom, I'm fine. No, he's not. Then you got to take him somewhere down to the kitchen or wherever he allows you to go and just talk. Hey, sometimes life is hard. But there are usually solutions, and I find that when I talk to people I really care about, they can help me with some, solutions. What's going on? Is there something I can help you do?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And also, I realized in myself, I don't know, maybe it was just not a thing in the family I grew up in, but, there wasn't so much physical touch, right? And so it's been not as easy to initiate from my side. Of course, young kids, they just claim it, right? They just come and get it whenever they need it. But yeah, as my kids get older, I find this, I need to build this up in some way. So yeah, one thing that I just did was like, okay, I'm just going to make it a thing when we wake up in the morning and go to bed, at least this. And when people come home, we hug each other.
Why
We're
not?
just going to make this a thing. And yeah, it helps, to just give that space for this physical touch, no matter how old you are. And then it's okay to cuddle. We're making it okay.
Yeah, cuddling is so cool. My thing is, and I've heard this from many clinicians, and it's supposed to be a clinical fact, each of us requires 16 hugs a day for good mental health. So, I mean, if you got 12 kids and a husband, you get everybody to hug you and you're feeling
Well,
absolutely great,
yes.
But, even your 3 or 4 kids, then you got to hug them more.
Yeah.
And so that is a place in which we as parents just need to take that minute that it takes to really hug somebody close and say in their ear, "You are the most wonderful person I know. You are so wonderful. You are so incredible." Keeping that peaceful attitude in the house. You don't have to have a lot of money. I mean, just being happy and sharing with your child his day or her day and sharing your day in a good way.
Yeah.
Hey, mom did, she finally figured out Fortran or whatever she's working on, and it made me so happy. I stood in the hallway and danced for about 5 minutes until my boss gave me more work or whatever. But and also making life happy. Sometimes we're so heavy. Oh, oh, this restoration work is so hard, and I'm in the middle of it and I'm suffering. Nobody wants to suffer. We always want to be happy. And even our church life, if we try to make it so much, you've got to feel, and this is not a put down of this, but you've got to feel the sad heart of Jesus. You've got to feel the sad heart of true parents. You've got to feel the sad heart of the world. You've got all of this burden on you. But someplace there has to be joy. And if we just burden our children, they will not enjoy being in our movement. There's got to be something here for them. We may have to appeal to our larger community to do things with our kids. Take them on trips, go places, have a party at the church center. Things like that, I think, are very, very important.
Yes.
Yeah. So as we are developing, we need to find out, what does our child need? What can I provide for my child to make his or her life happier? Might want to listen to some of the things they are listening to. Might want to watch the movies. In fact, I encourage it, to watch what your child is looking at and to get invested in some things. Our son called me up a few years ago and said, Mom, my trooper, he's a state trooper, our troopers are putting together a fantasy football league. Now he's an adult, he's got a wife, for Pete's sake. But I said to myself, well, I don't know anything about football, I have no interest. And, but he asked me to do it. So, okay. And I did it the first year. And the second year, I beat out the whole league. I was on top. They were telling me, you'd better never get pulled over by one of us. You're getting a ticket. Because I beat them all. I developed a new interest. And your
Cool.
children can lead you into new interests. Let them teach you the latest dances. Let
Mm.
them, you know, have you write a song with them or do something special that makes them feel like I have something to contribute to my family. And not just, okay, mom and dad are going out. You got to watch the other 3 kids. I was like, no, it's not my kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what else?
So,
Yeah, what
yeah,
else?
no, go for it.
Yeah, what else do you feel we can explore here that people might be really interested in?
Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of touched on um, pornography, like ways we can react and help our kids in that situation. I would also like to know, yeah, like you said in the beginning, we expected kids, they won't have crushes, you know, they're going to be perfect till the blessing, but that's not the reality.
Yeah, it's not.
So what can parents do when, you know, this time is starting, you know, the other gender is getting more interesting, or yeah, it's just, it's not easy, right? Um,
No, it's not. And I will just put in this, some of our children are going to be pulled into that to the point that they can't really get out of it. They're going to make mistakes, in short. And this is not at all, if your child's out there, he's going to make a mistake. Many parents think what I will do is I will totally isolate my child. I will put him in, get one of these homeschool programs. And not to knock homeschool, but what I've discovered is that when people come out of those homeschool programs and go into the real world, they instantly, almost, a large percentage of them don't know how to cope and get pulled into lives that they never expected. One, because they're curious. What are they keeping from me? Two, because they don't get the signals that other people get. This guy said, come up and look at my etchings. I guess he must be an artist. They don't get it. They're not wise to the ways of the world. Back to Jesus, wise as serpents, innocent as doves. We need to educate our children, and keeping them out of the fallen world is not an option. They're going to work there someday. Not everybody's going to get a job working for FFWPU. We don't have that. So,
no, probably not.
so, right. So somebody's going to be out in the world trying to maintain life. What have we taught them that they can follow? We need to tell our children the beautiful side of sex, as I think you brought up. We need to help them understand some of the things that they might encounter when they go off to college. We need to help them understand the best way to maintain what they have learned over the years. And if something goes wrong, we need to not just rush in like the chapter 2 police and start beating them over the head. You did this horrible thing, and now my whole life, and again, my whole life is destroyed because I made these sacrifices for you. You terrible person, get out of my sight. What the child needs most is you. Are you all right? Is there anything I can do to make this easier for you? We're going to start looking at what ways home there are. The way back home, the way back to God's grace. God has spent 6,000 years forgiving Adam and Eve and making up for what they went through. So God will spend less time forgiving you. We need to let our children know that there is forgiveness. We need to let them know that we as their parents still love them. Doesn't matter what we're feeling. There's a great scene in the movie Bringing Down the House. I don't know if that's something that, it's a Steve Martin and Queen Latifah movie in which the daughter gets involved in something. She's been sneaking out on dad, and now she gets into a situation that she really doesn't want to be in, so she calls the house. And Queen Latifah gives a very good talk to the father. Accept her, understand her, find out what else is going on in her life. And he goes to her bedroom and he says, just tell me, whatever. This is a good time. I'm not going to judge you or yell at you. Tell me what's going on in your life. And apparently she tells him a bunch of stuff. And she's holding, oh, Dad, I'm so happy you understand. And he's behind her going, but he made that bargain with her, so he listens to her. And she starts to find a way to change. It's a wonderful, it's a funny movie. It's, kind of a lot of topics in there. But
Mm,
again, mom and dad need to watch that maybe without the children and decide whether their children are ready for that. But it's such a great scene for that particular scene for how we should hear our children. And that's hard, but it's something we have to do because a person can come back to God. That's the whole story of the prodigal son.
right.
So when our children have made mistakes, come to understand what the mistake is and see a way that they can change, then it's time to kill the fatted calf and celebrate.
Mm,
And then help the child without needling or being overprotective or whatever. But letting the child say, hey, you know, this happened the last time. Let's see what else we can do.
yeah. Yeah, I think it does take kind of practice. Like I've heard doing some role play can help.
Yeah,
Practicing with your spouse or a friend,
yeah.
someone says some triggering news and
Uh-huh.
you practice accepting it
Uh-huh.
or, acting in a normal, calm way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think this is really useful because, it's going to be hard to not react, honestly speaking.
Of course, of course. Yeah,
If you hear some big news that you're not ready for.
yeah.
So, yeah, just some role play or, yeah, also just taking into consideration, yeah, I want to pull my child in, not push them away.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this question kind of applies to all of these issues, but like if I just feel my child is doing things or acting in a way or just basically is doing things that are unaligned to what I think is good for them,
Uh-huh.
how can I realign them or protect them?
Uh-huh.
I feel like this can be very sensitive. um, just having a preteen myself,
Uh,
you know.
yeah, yeah. Well, again, your children are going to test you. Don't forget that. They are going to see what would mom or dad do if.
Mm,
And so it is that place in which our love has to become unconditional. And we have to be able to say to our child, my love for you will never change. My concern for you will never change. We need to find out how we can both make each other happy. Tell me why you feel this way.
mm. Yeah, like I love you no matter what, and I'm concerned for you no matter what. It's a good pair showing like, yeah, this is not me trying to break your rebellious side.
Mhm.
It's really just I'm concerned because of this love that I have for you.
And if you look, therapeutically, what we discover is that some rebellion is a part of growing up. So if you
Mm,
look at the 2-year old who says, me do it, and pushes your hand away, that is the same. It is the same strategy that the 16-year-old or the 15-year-old is going through. I can run my own life. you know, I'm practically an adult. No, you're not. Let's see you get a job. You really want to go there, but don't go there. So if we have our child and we recognize this is 2-year-old behavior. What did I do when he was 2 years old? How did I handle it? What did I say? What did I do? And what do I do now? He's just a tall 2-year-old. So establishing early that there are rules in your house before your child starts trying to figure out ways to violate them. There are things that we do, and
yeah.
those things result in happier household than your what you're doing right now, playing your stereo at 150 decibels and refusing to wear your earphones. We're glad they're not wearing earphones because they're not doing damage to their hearing, everyone else's hearing. But, you know, grandma's trying to sleep. And you know how she gets. She doesn't like to be awakened. So therefore, why don't you turn those earphones down? Why don't we go out and get our Dr. Dre earphones and put them on? Dr. Dre, oh my God. And why don't we try to figure out how to make your life happier?
Yeah. Yeah, I like the fact that you can just kind of go back to your parenting back when they were two and
Yeah.
think, okay, what worked at that rebellious time, Like, I just had some rebellious time with my 4-year-old recently.
Hey.
And usually he just needs to do something that calms him down, like read a book, or, I just let him get out his emotions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe this will also be a kind of guideline for, his future teenagerhood.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a good way to look at it. Your child doesn't have to embarrass you in public. Uh, your child doesn't have to do certain things. I had a mother who said, my daughter wears the most embarrassing clothes. I mean, her belly's out and she bends over. Everybody knows everything. And I looked at her and said, who buys her clothes? And she says, well, I give her money. She goes to the mall. And why do you do that? You take your child to the mall. You say, hey, let's pick out some stuff that looks really cool on you. And if you find she's not buying things you want, then you say, next time, let's see if we can't cover a little more ground, a little more body with you. Or you buy them things and you say, hey, saw this at the mall, thought you'd like it. Or you explain to them that to wear some of the things that I have seen in school would be things that would tempt other people, and that's not fair. And I'm not a person that believes every person has to be covered up to their necks. Because God made beautiful bodies for all of us. We just don't want everybody looking at them. So some things have to be kept private. And rationale usually is, unless they're going to some kind of crazy party or something, which they probably shouldn't be going to at this point, they don't need to show off stuff. What's wrong with jeans and a top?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think also just to show and reassure your child, like, look, you want to be accepted and loved for you. You don't need to show any extra skin, right, to receive extra attention, right? It's actually your heart and your character
Right.
that really counts and makes you feel good when it's accepted. Right. Of course, yeah, I don't know if that comes across to every teenager.
Yeah. Anything else is a tease. It's putting something out there that you have absolutely no desire to give up.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're trying to get Fred's attention, think about Fred. These were not unificationists. I had 2 girls fighting over a boy in middle school. And I took them into my office and I went, Jack? Really? This guy's a jerk. What are you fighting over Jack for? And one girl went, yeah, you know what? You can have him. The other went, well, I don't want him. I ended the whole fight. And poor Jack, I called him in and I said, Jack, he says, I'm not coming down, Dr. Lowen, unless those 2 girls are out of your office. And we had to have a long talk about that. But helping people understand that a lot of the crushes and the feelings, these deep feelings they have, are momentary. And to help people start learning how to look at the heart, how to look at what really motivates a person, how they're wired, what they are like when they are alone. And I tell people that is when you know what a person really is. What do they do when they're alone? So, of course, people are going to look at people and say, gosh, that's a beautiful man. That's a beautiful woman. I tell them it's like going to the art gallery and seeing a beautiful painting. They're not going to let you take it home. You might be able to buy a copy in the gift shop, but to understand that your husband, your wife, is already on earth and wondering who you are and where you are is the greatest mystery. So some of the
Mm.
things that I've done in the past that I've found helpful have been things like telling people, get a box, and I don't have one down here, but get a box, and every time you see something that you would like to give to your spouse, put it in there. Start thinking about those kinds of things now.
Mm.
Get an empty picture frame, and we did this for our son. We got beautiful picture frame, and it was all ornate and everything, and there's nothing in it. We took out the picture of the people going in the picture frame, and put it on your desk. Put it someplace where you'll see it. Your beloved's face will be there someday. Start thinking now about the person that's going to be your eternal spouse.
Yeah, I love that. It makes it really more real,
Yeah,
um, easier to imagine, like it's going to happen.
yeah.
Maybe making this weight a little bit more bearable.
Right, because your 14-year-old is not necessarily thinking about, wow, I'm going to someday be blessed to somebody. They're thinking about, well, Mindy likes me now. That's so if they have this ideal of the person that could complete their lives, somebody who has their values, somebody that has their interests, somebody that's out there that they will discover at some point in their lives. Wow, isn't that something to look forward to?
Yeah, yeah, that's really wonderful.
Mhm.
I feel like we touched on a lot of things that are helpful to support our kids in this unsafe and sexualized world. Like, yeah, how do we support them when they have low self-esteem or when they are about to look at pornography or maybe they have,
Mhm.
and even masturbation, you talked about that also, like
Mhm.
to just really show grace and, help your child if they, yeah, at a young age. I think it's more just an exploration
Yeah.
of getting to know the body.
Mhm.
But yeah, as children get older, it, can be linked to looking at pornography and then wanting to masturbate. But I think probably you approach these things similarly to how you explained, right? Just getting to know my child and saying, yeah, like, why don't we, how can I connect with you and so that, you don't feel like you have to, um, yeah, connect with other things that are destructive for you or
Mhm.
yeah, maybe could you elaborate a little bit more on just if this becomes a compulsive behavior, especially in the teenage years?
Yeah. Well, as I said, the real experts, we have a program, that whole High Noon program, which I think is excellent. And they've done the research and they have all of this stuff, and it's really good. And I hope that at some point you can have them as speakers. Uh,
For
but
sure.
for many of our young people, as I said, idle time is so difficult. I think when you start using don'ts and that kind of stuff, people go, why not? Oh, it must be cool. Then let me try it. And then what started off as an experimentation becomes a habit, becomes a compulsion. And you don't want to get to that point. Helping people to learn, or helping your young people, hey, let's go down to the old people's home and, well, that's not a nice name for it. What do we call them? To a senior center and
Hmm.
see if we can do something special to help people. Let's find out what they need. Uh, as I said, from ages 14 to 18, I cleaned bedpans. I fed people that couldn't feed themselves. I read them stories. I went to the store for them. I did those kinds of things under the Red Cross. And that service for others is not such a big thing, but it is something that we, as unificationists, should be doing. That's my personal peeve. But getting things outside of me and letting them go to others also looks great on your college resume when you're doing that essay and everything. Yes, I worked for, there's that. Depending on your neighborhood, maybe you need to go out and, pick up debris or sweep up debris or whatever and make the surroundings look better. Some people have done gardens. They go in and they plant fruit or vegetables, and they're for the community. Things that are other-centered are very important because something like pornography or masturbation is all about me. Whereas things that are service to others, even a small job. Our son, we lived in New York, he used to go to West Point and sell hot dogs and the concession stand. That's probably why he followed the course he did in becoming a military kind of person. But finding themselves, finding their careers, going to special programs and entering special competitions and things like that, sports, all of these things take the child away from my body as well. And I say this a lot to people, when you are an infant, you look into your mother's eyes and you bond. When you are a spouse, you look into your partner's eyes and you bond. When you are looking at something like pornography, you're looking in the eyes of a person that you're not going to bond with. There's always going to be a feeling of frustration because you will never have that person. So I see my son, I look in his eyes, I feel really cool because I love him so much. And my grandkids, I look at my husband, I love him especially. I like to look at his eyes because they're really cool. But if I'm looking at Fred at Chippendales, I'm never going to have Fred. I'm not his type. And therefore, why frustrate myself? The world will make masturbation, pornography, very attractive. I look sometimes at some of the talk shows and stuff on YouTube, and they're talking about pornography. It's like, I do this all the time. Well, I'm happy that you are making a lot of money. Don't tell me about your personal habits. I'm not interested.
I just want to say, to your point back on masturbation, that I really like that also, just that we should really, because I mean, it's about the dopamine kind of, right? Like you get this quick dopamine hit, but it's not, it's just a short fulfillment, right?
Yeah.
And you don't feel good afterwards. But when you really busy your body, then it's really working up. It's like also you get dopamine, but in a different way and for much more long term. And I think that's just also a really good thing, a takeaway for parents is if we can really support our kids to find really fulfilling activities, like maybe it's even learning how to hunt, then
I never tasted a single piece of meat, but go ahead.
Then it can really make them feel fulfilled and, who knows, maybe find their passion in life. I just wanted to emphasize that as a takeaway. Just kind of to recap and wrap this up a little bit. Being a parent, and especially, I wanted to say especially when you're parenting a teenager, but it's always up and down. Sometimes people say, it's so much easier when they're little, but then some people say wait till they're teenagers and then the real action starts. I mean, it's always a growing experience. I think just when they do become teenagers, you can just sense like, wow, this is it's kind of coming to an end, their childhood, right? And you feel like it's somehow very important and critical, to their future, to just, try to guide them. But of course, like you said in the very beginning, communication and connection, I think, is the ultimate goal, to really connect and communicate with them. So, yeah, through this journey, how can we energize and motivate ourselves in parenting when it isn't always such a smooth journey? Do you have any tips for that?
Okay, I think first of all, there is the idea that I used to hear people talk about being just a housewife or just a mother. The most amazing thing that you can do in your life is to raise a child, to put another human being on the earth in good shape. And we have to become proud of that, not of just the idea that, yeah, I got 6 kids, but I'd really like to be a culinary chef or whatever. I realize this is a job. It's a hard job. It's a grueling job. But it is a job that has so many incredible benefits. We've created people out of an egg and a sperm. It's so amazing. These two little things we raised into 6'4" masters of the universe. So how can we become more energized? We change our attitude toward parenting, and we look at it as something that is so exciting and a gift from God to raise a child into manhood or womanhood. As well, I would recommend that people get together and talk about, have groups and talk about not only their challenging situations, but also how amazing they feel. My Fred, oh my gosh, he is the most amazing by her side. He inspires me in this way. And rather than discussing the problems or being worried about the future, like this woman that had the young child, that she was already obsessing over the problems she was going to have when the child became a teenager. By the way, the child didn't become a horrible problem for her, and I think is doing some incredible job now. Instead of going there and being fearful of the problems, that we look at the potential and we look at the future as something that we can help to make bright for this person. And rather than seeing the child as my child, that we see the child as someone that is on the earth to benefit the world. And if your child winds up working at Starbucks, that's a career. Hey, I like my Starbucks people. And if the child, in fact, they impress me that they can take so much from people that are not always nice to them, and they can still smile.
Yeah.
Somebody raised our Starbucks people right. And so your child doesn't become the discoverer of cancer, that we stop setting goals that are too high and that our child is not in agreement with. If I want my child to become the next president of the United States, he ought to at least want to become that.
Should hope so.
And he's almost old enough. If we want our children to accomplish and to love us, we have to love them. Not compare them to other people's children, which we do. I should say, not compare them negatively to other people's children. Realize that they have the right to make errors and to come to us for correction, to realize that we don't have that big a stance in who they ultimately will become. So, of course, there's that famous piece from the prophet, Khalil Gibran, and I don't know if it violates something, copyright-wise or whatever. But basically, it's your children are not your children. I don't know. Most people are probably familiar with that. They are the sons and the daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but are not from you. And though they're with you, they don't belong to you. You can give them your love, but not your thoughts. They have their own thoughts. You can house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in a place called tomorrow, which you cannot enter, not even in your dreams. You can strive to be like them, but you cannot make them just like you. And that is a piece of advice that all of us can take into account. I had ideals for what I wanted my son to be like. I never thought he would wind up going overseas, serving in 3 foreign wars, including he went to Korea, and was there at the time that 9/11 happened. I never thought that he would, I always saw him as a 4-year-old, so I never thought he was going to get married and have children, or get blessed and have children, and that now I have a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old. I never thought that that was going to happen, even though I always believed in God. And, he didn't become a surgeon or the President of the United States yet. But my goals, I would move over because he has his own goals. And when he can get those goals activated, they're good goals. And when he can get those goals together, and when I can see how I can help him do what he feels called to do, then that's when I'm being a really good parent. So to be excited about your children's future, even if it's not the future you planned for them. And as I said, if there is a mistake, if there is a problem, to help your child find the way back to the path home. And if it's a physical problem, to try to get them all the help you can. And that's pretty much what I have to say.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra.
Okay.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah, and as I said, thank you for inviting me to speak on this. I'm not an expert on everything I've said, but I hope I've given some light and that parents can feel some inspiration from it.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, a big encouragement and support to all you parents listening, because we know it's challenging journey, but as Sandra said, it's an amazing journey that we're blessed to do, to have with our child. So yeah, let's really raise them and be excited for their future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And thank you.
Spread the word and stay connected through YouTube, Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, and our newsletter, which you can subscribe to on our website, schooloflove.org. Really hope to hear from you.